You ever walk into your own house and feel like a stranger? Like something shifted when you weren't looking? That was me last Thursday. Same door, same worn doormat with yesterday's boot print. But inside, the air felt staged. Stiff. Like the house knew a secret it wasn't ready to share. "Claire," I called. Her voice floated from the kitchen, too bright, too rehearsed. A voice dripping with cheer she didn't actually feel. My gut twisted, but I brushed it off. Maybe I was imagining things. We'd been rocky lately, sure, but she'd been trying, or at least, I thought she had. When I walked in, she was fiddling with a wine bottle, the expensive kind we save for anniversaries. 2 glasses sat on the counter, polished like they'd been waiting all day. She looked at me, smiling too wide, and then came the words that cut like glass. "Hey, babe, I invited someone over tonight." My stomach dropped. "Oh yeah? Who?" Her eyes flicked to the clock. "Just an old friend. Someone I wanted you to meet." The blouse smoothing. The tremor in her voice. The years I'd spent studying her every move. I didn't need a name. I knew. This wasn't just a friend. This was him. The ghost I'd suspected but never caught. I almost asked. Almost forced her to lie. But instead, I nodded slowly. "All right. I'll be here." Her smile faltered. She expected anger. Suspicion. Not calm. That rattled her more than yelling ever could. The wait was torture. Claire cooked like she was hosting royalty. Salmon with lemon butter, roasted vegetables, creme brulee already chilling in the fridge. I sat at the table, scrolling my phone, pretending not to care. But every tire on gravel, every step outside, made my pulse slam harder. At 7:15 sharp, the knock came. Claire froze, then straightened her hair with trembling fingers. The door swung open, and there he was. Mid-30s, sharp haircut, leather jacket. A cologne commercial smirk plastered on his face. He stepped inside like he belonged there. Like he'd already won. "Mark," Claire said quickly, "this is Ryan. My friend." Ryan stretched out his hand like it was some normal dinner. Like he wasn't standing in the house of the man he'd been betraying. I gripped it hard, hard enough to see his smirk twitch. "Pleasure," he said smoothly. "Oh," I answered, locking eyes. "The pleasure's all mine." Claire laughed too high, ushering him in, pretending everything was fine. But standing there, I finally understood. The storm I'd been dreading wasn't on its way. It was already raging in my living room. The 3 of us sat around my table, the air thick with salmon and lemon butter, but I could barely taste a bite. My mouth was dry, metallic, buzzing with adrenaline. Claire kept pouring wine like she thought a steady drip of alcohol could drown out the tension. Her hands shook each time she topped off Ryan's glass, and she tried to cover it with laughter. Too loud, too quick, too fake. Ryan leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. My house. My table. My wife. He rambled about his job, consulting, whatever that meant. Stuff so vague it sounded more like a hustle than work. And the worst part? He didn't even try to sell it. He wasn't there to impress me. He was there to claim territory. Claire's eyes kept flicking my way, waiting for me to explode. She wanted to see if I'd snap, storm out, flip the table, something. Instead, I stayed calm. When Ryan bragged about his car, I smiled. When he hinted about his special connection with Claire, I nodded. When he cracked a joke at my expense, I laughed politely. The calmer I was, the more her mask cracked. Eventually, Claire excused herself to grab dessert, leaving me alone with him. The kitchen clattered in the distance, the wall clock ticked, and Ryan swirled his wine, smirking. "She told me you'd be cool about this," he said casually. "Said you weren't the jealous type." I set my fork down. "Cool about what, exactly?" He leaned in, lowering his voice. "You know, this situation. No sugarcoating. No pretense. Just raw arrogance, dripping off his tongue." I smiled without warmth. "Funny thing about situations," I said slowly. "They have a way of changing fast." Before he could reply, Claire reappeared. 2 creme brulees balanced on a tray. Not 3. 2. She froze when she saw my eyes narrow, then stumbled through her excuse. "Oh, I only made enough for Ryan and me. I figured you didn't like sweets." I chuckled, low and sharp. "You figured wrong." Ryan dug in like it was a trophy. Claire perched close beside him, spoon in hand, eyes darting between us. She thought I didn't notice his hand slide under the table to brush her thigh. She thought I didn't see her stay still, not flinching, not pulling away. They thought I was blind. But I wasn't the one on trial. They were. I let them sit in their illusion of control, watching, memorizing every detail. The smug grin on his face, the nervous flutter in hers, the way they fed off each other like I wasn't even in the room. When the plates were empty, Ryan leaned back with the arrogance of a man who thought he'd already won. "Good dinner," he said. "Claire's told me a lot about you. Said you were steady, predictable, a rock." I lifted my glass, my voice even. "Rocks are good. They don't move easily." His grin stretched wider. "Yeah, but they break when you hit them hard enough." Claire laughed thinly, a sound that died in her throat. I didn't laugh. I just studied him, silent. The air between us thickened until it was almost crushing. Finally, I stood, stacking plates with deliberate calm. "You're right, Ryan," I said. "Everything breaks eventually." I set the dishes down, looked him dead in the eye. But some things break back. The silence cut sharper than glass. Claire shifted in her seat, her forced smile twitching. Ryan didn't lose his smirk, but his eyes flickered, just for a second, with the first trace of doubt. That was the moment I knew. Dinner wouldn't end with dessert. It would end with someone shattered. After the plates were cleared, Claire put on that brittle, hostess smile and suggested we move to the living room. Like this was some pleasant dinner party, not the most humiliating night of my life. Ryan stretched out, made himself comfortable on my couch, right in my spot. And Claire? She slipped down beside him, her knee brushing his. Too close for just friends. I sat opposite in the armchair, arms resting casually, eyes locked on them. Silent. That silence rattled them more than yelling ever could. Most men would have exploded by now, shouts, fists, throwing the guy out. That's what they were counting on. That's what they wanted. Something messy they could spin into Mark overreacted. But I gave them patience instead. Ryan tried to fill the gap, talking in that casual, fake-interested tone, asking about my work, my hobbies. He didn't care about the answers. He was circling, testing, seeing if I'd bite. Claire chimed in too, laughing too loud, her eyes flicking nervously away every time I caught her. Then Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, that smug grin cemented to his face. "You know, Claire and I go way back. College days. Crazy how life brings people back together, huh?" "Crazy," I said flatly. He chuckled like we'd shared a joke. "We've been catching up a lot. She tells me things she doesn't tell anyone else. It's good, you know, having someone who really understands you." Claire shifted but stayed silent. No denial. No correction. I nodded slowly. Funny. I thought marriage was supposed to be that. The air tightened. Claire swallowed hard. Ryan's smirk grew wider, hungry. "That's the thing, man," he said smoothly. "Sometimes one person can't be everything. Sometimes it takes someone else to fill the gaps." I leaned forward, my stare cutting into him. "And what gaps are those, Ryan?" He didn't blink. "The ones you leave open." Claire gasped, her hand brushing his arm. "Stop. Don't." But it was too late. He'd crossed the line. I smiled then. Not friendly. Not warm. A smile that promised consequence. "You're right about one thing. It does take someone else sometimes. But it doesn't always end the way they think." For the first time, his confidence wavered. Just a flicker. Claire jumped in, desperate, forcing a laugh. "All right, you two. Let's not turn this into some debate. It's just been a nice evening, hasn't it?" I stood slowly, each movement deliberate. "Oh, it's been nice. Enlightening, even." I walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside, and stared into the black yard. My reflection stared back, calm, steady, dangerous. Behind me, I could feel their eyes tracking every move. "The thing about inviting someone into your home," I said quietly, sharp as a blade, "is you never know what they're walking into. You think you're in control. But sometimes," I turned, meeting both their eyes, "you've just stepped into the lion's den." Claire's face drained pale. Ryan kept the smirk, but the edges cracked. The storm wasn't just near anymore. It was circling the house, pressing against the windows. And I was done waiting for it to break. The room went dead still, the kind of silence that makes every breath feel like a shout. Claire fidgeted beside Ryan, twisting her wedding band so hard I thought it might snap. She looked like she wanted to melt into the couch. Ryan, though, he sprawled back, legs wide, smug grin painted on his face, like he owned every inch of the space that was mine. "You talk like you're dangerous," he finally said, voice dripping with arrogance. "But let's be real, you're not. Claire told me everything. You're predictable. Safe. You don't rock the boat. That's why she came to me." Claire's head jerked toward him, eyes wide. "Ryan, stop," she whispered. But he raised his hand like he was shutting her down, like he was the one calling the shots. I didn't move, didn't blink, just sat there, steady as a loaded gun on a table. "That's funny," I said, "because predictable men don't usually let their wives invite lovers into their home, do they?" Claire recoiled like I'd struck her. Ryan's smirk flickered, just for a second. "Look," he said, scrambling back into confidence. "You can be mad, but the truth's obvious. She wants more than you can give, and I'm here to give it." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, eyes locked on his. My voice was calm enough to chill the air. "You mistake patience for weakness. That's your problem." His grin returned, but thinner now, cracking at the edges. "No, my problem is sitting here while you pretend you're still in charge. You lost her a long time ago. Tonight just proves it." Claire grabbed his arm, desperate. "Please, stop." But I didn't even glance her way. My eyes stayed locked on him. And for the first time, I saw it, the flicker, that tiny flash of doubt in his eyes. He hadn't expected me to hold the line without raising my voice. "Let me explain something," I said, each word measured, sharp. "You came into my house, sat in my chair, drank my bourbon, touched my wife right in front of me. You think that makes you bold? It doesn't. It makes you reckless. And reckless men don't last long when the real fight starts." He laughed, but it came out hollow. "You're all talk." I rose to my feet, slow, deliberate. The room seemed to shrink around us. "Try me." Claire shot up, panic sparking in her eyes. "Stop. Both of you, just stop. This isn't what I wanted." I snapped toward her, voice cutting through the room. "Then what did you want, Claire? To see if I'd break? To parade him in front of me like some prize?" Her lips trembled. No words, just silence. Ryan stood too, puffing his chest, trying to look bigger. He had me by an inch in height, but it didn't matter. A man already sinking doesn't scare anyone. "This is pathetic," he muttered. You're pathetic." And then he made the mistake. His hand came down on my shoulder, a shove meant to put me back in my seat. The air shifted instantly. Claire gasped. Ryan's eyes widened just a fraction, like he realized too late that he'd crossed the final line. I didn't swing. Not yet. But the storm had arrived, violent and full. And my first strike wasn't with fists. It was with the look in my eyes, the one that told him plain and simple. You just stepped into a fight you can't walk away from. The shove itself was nothing, barely more than a nudge, but it tore through the last fragile thread holding the night together. His hand lingered on my shoulder, fingers pressing down like he wanted to prove this was his space now. I didn't back away. I leaned into it, closing the distance until our faces were inches apart. My voice came out low, cold, a warning Claire had to strain to hear. "You should have kept your hands to yourself." The smirk twitched. Then he doubled down. "Or what? You finally gonna grow a backbone?" That was all it took. My fist cracked against his jaw, clean and sharp, the kind of punch that travels through bone into your own arm. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Ryan staggered, crashing into the coffee table. Claire's candles tumbled, one shattering, hot wax streaking the rug like blood. "Mark, stop!" she screamed, clutching at me. But Ryan was already climbing to his feet, face twisted with rage. His lips split wide, blood dripping bright against his teeth. "You think you can hit me and walk away?" he snarled, lunging. He swung wild. Anger, not skill. I ducked, grabbed his collar, and slammed him into the wall. Drywall cracked like thunder, dust puffing into the air. He groaned but kept swinging, one punch connecting with my ribs. Pain flared white-hot, but it only sharpened me. "Enough!" Claire sobbed, throwing herself between us. Ryan shoved her aside without a glance. That was it. That was the line. I ripped him off balance, drove him down hard into the carpet. His breath whooshed out under my weight. He clawed, thrashed like a cornered animal, but there was no control, just panic. I pressed my forearm into his throat, pinning him. "You walk into my house," I growled, each word punctuated by pressure. "Touch my wife, disrespect me at my own table. You don't get to walk out the same way you came in." His eyes bulged, veins straining, his nails scraping at my arms. Claire was hysterical now, sobbing, pulling at me, begging. For a moment, the thought crossed my mind. I could finish it. Right here. End this. But I didn't. I eased just enough for air to rush back into his lungs. He gasped, chest heaving like a drowning man hauled to shore. I leaned close so only he could hear. "You're finished. Come near her again, and I won't stop next time." I shoved him off me, toward the door. He stumbled, legs weak, spitting blood onto the rug. Grabbing his jacket, he threw one last venomous glare, but the bravado was gone. In its place, only fear. The door slammed. Silence smothered the room, broken only by Claire's sobs. She collapsed onto the couch, face in her hands, shoulders shaking. I stood there, chest heaving, ribs aching, fists throbbing from impact. The fight was over, but in the back of my mind, one truth hit harder than any punch. Sending him out the door didn't end anything. It only lit the fuse. And the real explosion, the fallout, was still to come. The silence after the door slammed wasn't relief. It was razor sharp, cutting through the living room like broken glass. My chest still heaved from the fight, ribs throbbing where Ryan's fist had landed. The bitter taste of adrenaline clung to the back of my tongue. Claire sat hunched on the couch, face buried in her hands, sobbing so hard her shoulders shook. The candles she'd set for her little dinner show lay scattered across the floor. One still burned sideways, wax dripping slow and thick into the rug. I bent down and blew it out. The hiss of smoke sounded like a gunshot. When she finally lifted her face, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her eyes wide and wet. Fear and guilt mixing together. "Why did you do that?" she whispered. I stared, disbelief boiling into fury. "Why did I do that?" "Claire, you invited him into our home. Into our marriage. What did you think was going to happen?" Her lips quivered. She shook her head like a child refusing to hear. "It wasn't supposed to go like this. He wasn't supposed to." Her voice cracked and died. "Wasn't supposed to what?" I snapped. "Sit on my couch? Eat my food? Put his hand on your thigh while I watched?" "Because that's exactly what happened, Claire. And you let him." She broke down harder, choking on sobs. I wanted to see if you'd fight for me." The words froze me. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. "Fight for you?" My voice dropped, steel cold. "You brought another man into my home. Sat him at my table. Let him touch you in front of me. That wasn't about wanting me to fight. That was about humiliating me." Her head shook violently. "No, you don't understand." Ryan said. I barked a laugh so bitter it hurt. Ryan said, "Right. The bleeding fool who just limped off my porch. That's who you're taking wisdom from?" She pressed her hands over her face again, muffling her cries. The room filled with nothing but her ragged breaths and the pounding of my own heart. I leaned back against the wall, exhaustion settling in as the adrenaline bled out. My knuckles screamed. My ribs throbbed. But deeper than all of that was the weight in my chest, heavier than any punch I'd taken. "I've been steady, Claire," I said quietly. "Predictable, sure. I worked. I came home. I stayed loyal. I thought that's what marriage was supposed to be." I gestured at the wrecked living room, the cracked drywall, overturned candles, half-eaten dessert. "You wanted excitement? Chaos? A show? Congratulations. You got it." She looked up at me then, eyes swollen and bloodshot. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I studied her face, searching for something real, remorse, truth, anything worth saving. But all I saw was fear. Not fear of what she'd done. Fear of losing me. Fear of the fantasy she'd built with Ryan crumbling in front of her. And then it hit me like a second punch to the ribs. She wasn't sorry for the betrayal. She was only sorry she'd been caught in the wreckage. The storm outside had passed. But inside these walls, inside my chest, it was just getting started. Claire stayed curled on the couch, rocking like a child, her fingers clawing into the fabric as if squeezing hard enough could keep her world from collapsing. I stood by the doorway, arms crossed, lungs burning with every breath. The space between us wasn't a few feet of carpet, it was a canyon. Finally, she lifted her head, eyes red and swollen. "Please, Mark," she whispered. "Don't let this be the end." I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, the woman I thought I knew, sitting in the wreckage of her own choices. My voice came out low, steady, dangerous. "You want to tell me what exactly you thought tonight was going to accomplish?" She twisted her wedding band until her knuckle whitened. "Ryan, he told me you'd grown distant, that you didn't fight for me anymore, that if I brought him here, you'd finally wake up, that you'd see I could walk away and what?" I snapped. "Fall to my knees? Beg you to stay? Compete with him like he was some prize?" Her tears spilled over again. I thought it would show me you still cared. A bitter laugh ripped out of me, hollow and sharp. You needed to drag another man into our house to figure that out. She flinched at the venom in my voice. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she muttered, clinging to the lie. I didn't think he'd push you like that. I didn't think you'd. Her gaze dropped to my bruised knuckles. Hit him. I finished. Claire, he put his hands on me. On you. What exactly did you expect me to do? Shake his hand and thank him for dinner? She buried her face in her palms, sobbing. I just wanted proof you'd fight for me. Proof I still mattered. My chest tightened, not with sympathy, but fury. You already had proof. 7 years of it. Every paycheck. Every night I came home tired, but still sat with you. Every promise I kept. That was proof. But that wasn't enough. You wanted a circus. You wanted blood on the carpet to feel loved. Her head shook violently. No, I was stupid. I listened to him. I let him in my head. But it's not too late, Mark. We can fix this. Counseling, whatever it takes. Just stop. I lifted a hand, cutting her off. You don't get to decide what happens next. Not anymore. Her lip trembled. She slid from the couch to the floor, knees hitting the rug, clutching at my arm like a drowning woman. Please, please don't give up on me. I'll cut him off. I'll change my number. I'll do anything. Just don't walk away. The sight of her on her knees should have broken me. Should have reminded me of softer days, mornings when love felt real. But all I felt was clarity. Cold, brutal clarity. Because she wasn't pleading out of love. She was pleading out of fear. Fear of losing comfort, security, the steady man she thought would never leave no matter how far she pushed. I pulled my arm free. My voice was flat, final. Get up, Claire. You don't need to beg. You already made your choice. Her eyes searched mine, desperate, clawing for forgiveness that wasn't there. And in that moment, I knew forgiveness wasn't coming. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Claire stayed on her knees longer than I thought she would, her hands hovering where I'd pulled my arm away, like she couldn't quite believe the warmth she used to count on had turned into stone. I couldn't look at her without seeing Ryan's smirk, without replaying the sound of glass shattering when I drove him into the table. The whole night kept looping in my head, and every loop cut deeper. Finally, I turned toward the staircase. I'm going to bed, I said. Her voice cracked. Just like that? After everything, you're just walking away? I paused, hand on the banister. Claire, I've been walking away for a long time. I just didn't realize it until tonight. The words seemed to gut her. She sank back against the couch, sobbing into her hands. For years I would have gone to her, held her, whispered that we'd figure it out. But tonight, I felt nothing but exhaustion. The kind that seeps into your bones, heavier than any fist. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling like a nail in the coffin of the life we'd built. When I reached the bedroom, I didn't bother closing the door. The house felt foreign now, hollow, poisoned by everything that had been said and done under its roof. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my bruised knuckles, the skin torn raw. Proof. That was the word she'd used. Proof I cared. Proof I'd fight. And I realized then, she didn't want a husband. She wanted an opponent. She wanted conflict to measure her worth against. And that's not a marriage, it's a battlefield. The floor creaked behind me. Claire stood in the doorway, face streaked, hair tangled, eyes desperate. Don't do this, she whispered. Don't throw us away. I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone I didn't recognize anymore. The woman I married would have never invited another man into our home to test my love like a cruel experiment. The woman I married would have never sat by while he taunted me. You threw it away the second you opened that door for him, I said quietly. All I did tonight was close it. Her breath hitched. She leaned against the frame, like the weight of my words was crushing her. So that's it. We're done? I stood, brushing past her without another glance. No, Claire. You're done. I'm just finally admitting it. Downstairs, the broken candle glass still glittered across the rug, catching the dim light from the porch. It looked like tiny shards of our life together, scattered and sharp, impossible to pick up without bleeding. I stepped carefully around them, grabbed my jacket, and opened the front door. The night air hit me cold, clean, almost merciful. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could breathe. Behind me, I heard Claire call my name, but I didn't turn back. Because some confrontations don't end with fists. They end with a choice. And mine was to walk away from the battlefield for good.